Hello and welcome to this presentation. My name is Micheál McGrath. I'm the VP of Marketing and Business Development at Visible Thread. I'm so happy that you've joined to watch this session. This is a session that was presented at the Bidx APMP UK event in Birmingham in November. We had such a great reaction in person. We had to record it, so there's been lots of inquiries to record this session. So look, I'm delighted to share the content again. And yeah, I've taken on some feedback, so it's a little bit different to what I shared previously. We've adapted, we've learned some things since, and I hope people enjoy it. So thanks for joining in. If you have any questions, feel free to reach out to me on LinkedIn or to contact Visible Thread directly. I'm more than happy to do that too, but I'm more than happy to have any discussions, whether it's Visible Thread related or AI related or anything around this space. I'm more than happy to have a conversation. So let's move on. So it's a jam-packed session. So we did it in 30 minutes in Birmingham. We're aiming for a certain similar time today. We're going to cover an awful lot. So we're going to cover everything from, okay, let's talk about the AI revolution. Let's talk about what we've seen AI bring into our industry, how it's been hype to the reality to where we are now, what we've learned along the journey, a very short journey. Let's talk about misunderstandings, what we've learned. Let's talk about what AI is good for, what it's not good for. Let's talk about your editorial process and how AI can fit into that. Because AI is very good for certain things. How can we make it work for us? Where does it fit in well? And how can we, I suppose, even pitch that into our own teams to make it successful? We'll look at some best practice. So let's do some prompting. Let's look at what works, what doesn't work. Let's look at a different strategy maybe you can do yourself. This section I think is really practical and good for no matter if you're using it in proposal development or tender development. That section will be very beneficial for you. And the last one, let's talk about the things that we need to talk about: integration, security, what we need to take into consideration when purchasing AI or using AI. Let's look at all those things. So jam-packed, lot to cover, but looking forward to it. So let's dig straight into it. So the real bump in this generative AI space happened in 2023 or even late 2022 when we saw the start of ChatGPT, and that became apparent. And we saw all these news headlines. The AI gold rush is here from the Washington Post. We saw generative AI promises economic revolution, the Wall Street Journal. How could AI destroy humanity? The New York Times. So we saw all these big, lavish headlines of AI is going to take over our jobs, AI is going to replace the industry, AI is going to do this, that, and other things. And people start to invest in AI and use it. And from an industry perspective, in the world that we live in, RFP software, we saw hundreds of vendors come onto the space. And there's loads of learnings from that. And what we've seen is a little bit of disappointment in some areas. The AI hype bubble is deflating. This is just 1 year on from the same newscasters. The AI revolution is losing steam. Whatever happened to that AI apocalypse? So we've certainly felt that AI is going to take over everything. We've used it. It's really good for certain things. Some people are disappointed. Some people think it should be doing more. Some people are a little bit fed up with the conversation. It is very noisy. I understand that. But it is powerful, and it's a evolution in technology that we haven't seen in a long, long time. It's one of the biggest evolutions in technology that there ever has been. And it's very exciting, but we have to take everything with a bit of a pinch of salt and understand what it's good for, what it's not good for. So is it false hype or is it a true revolution? To be honest, I don't think anyone really thinks like this. Like my personal opinion, these are not the questions that we ask each other. You don't go to bed at night thinking, okay, is AI going to be big? Is it going to be the revolution to everything? How can I use AI in my business better? They're not really the questions that I think most organizations ask. The organizations that we work with that use our products tend to talk about, okay, how do we drive growth? How do we prove this area? How can we get more efficient at this problem? And AI sometimes is the answer, and then sometimes it's not. And that's the kind of process that when we talk about AI transforming content generation or transforming any sort of industry or task, it's okay. Is it the right technology to use for that certain thing? So if we look at like common misunderstandings and we take that as a focal point, um, the first thing that we noticed when we started using AI was the hallucinations. Okay, we all have really good and funny examples of how it can hallucinate. The very early models of AI, which seem early, and 2 years ago it's not that long in terms of development, and they're better now, and things are advancing all the time. But we saw hilarious things come out of these LLM engines, and a large language model is the technology that these generative AI tools use to produce results for us. So we query something, the LLM will generate an answer. It'll always generate an answer. It will never ignore you. It will never give you no results. It's going to give you something. And some of those somethings can be nonsensical. They can be inaccurate. And that's the fear. That's the fear of, okay, if we're looking for 100% accuracy in something, an LLM is probably not the best use of that. And let's look at a couple of examples of that in a second of where that's the case. I think there's been really public scenarios where people have used LLMs to ask questions, to research, to be 100% accurate in certain areas, and it's let them down. And I think that's not shame on AI or the platforms that provided it. I think it's more so we didn't understand what we're supposed to use it for. So that's a good. It's hallucinations was the most obvious thing that people came across almost straight away. The second thing is all LLMs are different, and they have those models that are built. There's hundreds of thousands of these models. So there's everything from Llama 3, Meta have their own model, ChatGPT have their own model, Claude have their own model, Visible Thread use Mistral, and then we used Llama 3. As Visible Thread, we're a solution, we're agnostic to whatever model the organizations want to use. So like if you want to use Llama, or if you want to use Mistral, we don't mind. If you want advice, we'll give you advice. If you want to use the model that you built internally, we can do that. So that's the approach that we're taking. But to understand that not all these models are the same. The model behind ChatGPT is different to the model behind Gemini. And there's issues with these models. Some are good at certain things, and it's really technical stuff, and it just pops up in interesting scenarios. And one of those interesting scenarios is the spelling of strawberry. Now, strawberry, as we know, has 3 R's in strawberry. But when you've asked ChatGPT, and it's worth giving this an experiment, ask ChatGPT how many R's are in strawberry and see the answer it gives back. Often it's going to give back an answer of 2, as you see in this kind of scenario here. The word strawberry has 2 R's. No, it's 3, and we ask it to go back, and it continues to do it. Eventually, it'll probably agree with you and come up with 3. Or there is a chance that it might come back and give you the right answer. But keep asking it. It's an interesting concept. And why does it do that? It's because the way this particular LLM works, it breaks words into tokens. So we break words into letters, and we sound them out, and we can spell them. An LLM like the ChatGPT one breaks words into tokens. So it breaks the word into straw and berry. And it can't differentiate the 2 R's in berry. So it says there's one R in straw, and there's 1 R in berry. And that's where it falls down. So you see a very clear fault here in terms of spelling. And yeah, you don't want that creeping into your proposal process or your tender process. If you're looking for very serious requirements, or you're looking for something like that, you don't want to be falling down due to something like this. So it's interesting, and it's actually let's look at, okay, how do we determine whether we should use AI or not? So basically, if your question requires 100% accuracy, or you need 100% repeatable results, or you need to know exactly where the logic is coming from, well, then maybe AI isn't for you, or Gen AI isn't for you, or for that particular task. If you're looking for 100% accurate results, like, for example, how many R's are in strawberry, or how many references to a word is in a document, or show me every instance of cybersecurity in this document, or list out all the requirements of this RFP, or anything like that, where you require 100% accuracy, it's not probably for you. Or if you need to look at a document, for example, and you want to see all the changes that's made between one document and another, and you get there's 20 changes, and then you go back tomorrow and there's 22 changes and ask the same question, there's something wrong there, and it's not the right example. Or you need to reference exactly how the model is working, because we don't know, in many cases, we don't know exactly how that token example is highfalutin, and it's hard to understand fully. But if you want to understand the logic of exactly how it pull things, it is difficult. And one example that you can do here is take, for example, go into Microsoft Word and do control find a word. So like, say, cyber, pull out every instance of cyber in this document with control find. It gives you 24 answers. Say it gives you 24 results, and say cyber is mentioned 24 times here. Do that again and again and again, and come back tomorrow. Control find will always give you 24, because that's machine learning. That's the way that's built. It's programmable technology. It's 100% accurate. Go into Copilot within Microsoft Word, ask it the same question. It may or may not give you 24. It may give you 24. It may give you 23 tomorrow. It may give you 25 the next day. It's not good for those tasks. It takes assumptions. It's predicting how many is in there, and it's not as reliable for those type of tasks as you would want it to be, or in this profession that you need it to be. So if the answer is you need 100%, it's probably not for you. And the answer here is, like, and we'll look at a couple of these examples. So this is the Visible Thread, and VT Docs is one of our platforms that is more what we call deterministic software. Deterministic software is a well-used phrase in terms of it's 100% accurate to do certain tasks. So when we're looking for certain patterns or term requirements, when we're doing searches, when we're shredding documents, when we're doing comparisons between one document and another document, acronym checks, when we're calculating metrics like grade level, it's 100% accurate. There's no occasions where it's going to be wrong, or there's no occasions where it's going to hallucinate or predict anything. It's going to be the number of uses of the word cyber exists. So it's understanding that AI is brilliant, but it's not necessarily for everything. And that's a key learning on your journey. But then there's loads of right use cases for Gen AI. So when it comes to things that are like where 100% accuracy or 100% results is where it can be good enough, like where good enough is okay. And I don't mean good enough in terms of a lucent phrase, like it's just good enough. I don't mean it like that. I mean, if when simplifying a paragraph into a sentence is very objective, you can get a good enough answer. That's okay. I don't need the 100% perfect answer. But like, getting to a good enough scenario is great. Getting to a first draft of a document, getting the tone of a paragraph rewritten, getting, to create something from absolute scratch, to summarize something, to simplify something, all of these tasks, if AI can give us a good enough result, it's hours of time saving, and it's hugely beneficial. So good enough is not, I don't mean it derogatory. I mean it in terms of if good enough is a reasonable result for you and it saves you hours of time, this is brilliant. And I think it's just about carefully assessing, okay, what do I need Gen AI to do? And when it comes to text creation, simplification, when it comes to summarization, in terms of like maybe taking images or different pieces of workload and making it into something and that's more tangible or text based, or creating a table out of a narrative. It's brilliant at those things. So it's all about that question. Is it good enough, or do you need 100% accuracy? Now, let's move on to more practical things. So let's talk about, okay, so now we know it's good, right? We know it's good for the editorial process. So how do we fit it in? So let's look at a common editorial process. So there's the ideation phase. So we're thinking of doing this. So ideas of how to approach it, what we need to include, what are good ideas around it. So whatever, if we're creating something or creating an RFP or we're creating a response to something or we're creating anything, there's an ideation phase at some point. Then you draft something. Then it gets reviewed. It might be a self-review. It might be reviewed by an editorial team, might be reviewed by capture, by compliance, by contracts, and then it's going to come back to be edited. And then it'll probably be reviewed again. And you might loop here, and you might loop and loop. Depending how difficult your process is, you could be looping here for days and weeks and months and trying to get to your deadline. But there is an element of draft, review, edit, review, draft. There is an edit. There is a cycle that happens here. And the final thing is you evaluate it. At the last point of workload, you do have some sort of evaluation phase in terms of spell checks. Is it hitting the key points? Is it doing all this type of work? How does it land with people? Does it make sense as you read it through now after all these editorial cycles? Does it still make sense? And then we publish, or we push out, or we submit. So that's a common process. So let's talk about AI and its elements that fit in here. So certainly on the ideation part, and this is a question that I ask lots of people in the room, and I've seen this grow. So the first time I asked this question, maybe 10% of people 2 years ago were using it in the ideation phase, and now maybe 40%. AI is amazing for ideation. It is the best tool I've ever seen. It's as close to a human as you're going to get in terms of having a good conversation and back and forth than you're ever going to have. And even using the voice control in ChatGPT or these other tools, and being able to talk to it, express ideas, and it giving you responsive answers back and emotive answers back, it's amazing. So anyone that's using like ChatGPT's Pro version and you talk to it and it gives you back ideas, it's amazing. So I'd recommend anyone to try that. But think about it as it is the best intern that you're ever going to have. It is the best person in the world to, okay, these are all my ideas. Which ideas land? Which ideas make sense? How would you structure these ideas? So asking is not necessarily to create anything, but to bounce ideas back and forth with you. It's so instantaneous. It's going to draft things in ways that you're not really expecting it to draft, and it'll be really, really helpful for you. So it'll give you a different point of view no matter what. And the idea of doing alternatives. Okay, give me this idea in 5 different versions. Bang, bang, bang. It's going to do it really, really, really quickly. So I think that's a phase that AI is probably underestimated. The draft phase is where we see it used mostly. Okay, I know nothing. I have a blank page in front of me. Create something. That's hit and miss sometimes. Like that is a more difficult piece to do. You need to give it a lot of data and structure for it to actually give you a good draft that you're going to be happy with. And always understand a draft is a draft. These AI tools are not going to give you a final version. It's still going to need to be checked. It's still going to need to be reviewed and edited and moved. So you have to just understand that the draft is a draft, but you have to power AI with the right detail. We're going to talk about that a little bit later with some examples. But yeah, drafting is really, really important. The review will be done by people. Generally, you can review with AI, but in terms of a subjective review, it's if that's a proposal team or contracts team or compliance team or a capture or BD or your commercial team or whoever is actually looking at your RFP, that's generally going to be done by a person. The editing then, okay, it's too long, Michal. It's too complicated. The structure didn't work for me. Can you rewrite it in this way? AI can solve so much time here. So getting it, if you do get feedback like that, it's too long, it's not simple, it's not easy to understand, it doesn't flow very well. Any of these things, AI is fantastic at improving that. We need to incorporate more of this into this document. Well, AI is very good at that. And the editing phase is a key area. still be reviewed, and you can go back and forth and around in these cycles for a little bit. And the last thing is that evaluation phase. Now, I would put probably a half AI here, because in terms of spelling, grammar, in terms of like if you have to hit a certain grade, like if you have to hit 8, lower than 8 grade level, or if you want to have so much passive voice, you want to see that percentage, and you have like really core metrics like that in your business. Well, that's harder to do with AI and might not get you the accurate results you need. But the evaluation where AI really pops in is, how does it land? Similar to the ideation phase. Read this document and tell me what it's about. Read this document against the draft, and are we answering all the questions? Now, where it's not might be 100% accurate, but it's a good enough response that might irk you to go back into the editorial phase, or give you confidence that this is a decent output. So it's that using it as your best reviewer, your best intern that you ever had. I heard someone refer to AI as the smartest learning goldfish in the world. A goldfish, obviously, when you talk to it at first, it knows nothing, it has no sort of sense of anything. Then you give it loads of information, and it grows with you, and it learns so quickly. And you're getting an output, which is an odd comparison, but it makes some sort of sense. When presented in APMP UK, we talked a little bit about style guides, and many of the room still use style guides, and they think they're important to what they're doing. And I love style guides. As a marketer, I think it's really important. I think you need to set out the guidelines of, how we talk and how we do this and how we do that. And our style guide kind of asset that we have in Visible Thread, I think, is very good, because it breaks down the style guide into two things. There's the creative stuff where Gen AI is amazing, like messaging, position, tone. Using AI in the creative use cases is amazing. So like being able to get to a first draft a lot faster, allowing writers to implement tone and style like never before. If you're a technical writer and you struggle with writing in a compelling way, AI is wonderful. So it's a really, really powerful tool to invoke into the creative areas. The second area is evaluation. So this is where the style guide, I think AI isn't as impactful. So when you're looking at objective metrics like grade level, passive voice, spelling, language, AI is not your best friend here. It can get you to a certain point, that's good, but like if you want 100% accuracy in these things, it's probably not your best friend. Also, in terms of watchword lists, the best example I have is our brand name, Visible Thread. Visible Thread is one word. It's a brand name. It's capital V, capital T, but it's one word. If you write visible space thread, I would consider that a watchword. We highlight all these areas where that is used, and we need to change that to the actual right spelling. So that's an area that AI is not the best at that. It's not the best at finding every case of everything in 100% accuracy. So if you want to make sure your brand is respected, or there's certain words that you have pet peeves about, or you actually legally can't use, or there's better phrasing in your business lexicon, well, you need to using something that's 100% accurate is where you need to go there. So let's look at that. So the wrong use case for Gen AI, again, like scoring documents, grade level, readability, passive voice. We have a tool called VT Writer that is initially, before AI, only did this. Like, this is its main kind of focus, was scoring documents with objective metrics, giving people a real good sense of how the documents should be written, helping organizations have a clear tone of voice across the whole organization. And then VT Writer grew with the AI piece, and we started using the AI to do what it's really good at, and giving people the option to simplify. So what you see here is a paragraph being highlighted, and the option on the left saying this is a very complex paragraph, and giving you the option to simplify with AI. So that's a fabulous use case for it. the output of that is not going to be 100% because it's subjective. How can it be? But it's going to give you some really good options when you hit the button simplify. And the wrong case, we talked about this. So this is the idea of watchwords. If you don't like the word seamless in your organization and you want it to be smooth, AI doing a prompt to say replace every use of the word seamless and replace it with smooth is not the best use case, because I wouldn't trust it. It can slip up with these type of things because that's 100% accuracy you need there. The idea of state of the art going to advanced, the idea of turnkey going to ready to use, the idea of, best in breed going to top quality. So like all these type of phrases, if you have terminology in your organization that you have to stick to, this is important. Now, this can be really powerful if you're dealing with a lot of technical writers and they use terminology that does come across too difficult, and you just see it over and over again. Creating a watchword list that does every time they upload a document, does it highlights these or annotates it, is really beneficial to them. So let's talk about good practices and good prompting. So this is what a lot of people have watched today for, and this is what we always get asked, and it's always evolving, and we're learning new things as we talk to customers. But what I always say is writers and Gen AI, this is the best team up ever. So you talk about Wolverine and Deadpool, and that's the best team up ever, but this is amazing. These two technologies and human resources coming together is insane. The idea of having writers having the ability to use Gen AI in a good way is amazing. So let's not when I talk about it not being good for certain use cases, I'm not trying to say that it's not a good usage and not a good thing. It's amazing for our writers. We just need to know how to use it properly, and we need to know what's not good for it and what it is good for. And this is actually a lot of the story of Deadpool and Wolverine, because when they met initially, they didn't work at all. So it took a relationship that got to be built over time. They need to get used to working together, and eventually, no spoilers, but they do come together in the end. And they're it's a very good partnership. So that's a quirky example, but we got there. So the first thing when you come to prompting, it's not a one-touch solution. So it's not a solution. It's all these platforms, or the majority of them, are conversational tools. They're like chatbots. So it's like talking. It's like you have to mold it. You have to be willing to have a conversation with it. And if the idea of having one disaster multi-pronged prompt that's going to get you the output that you need every single time 100%, forget about it. Like, that just does not exist. There's not a red button on the wall that's going to make everything look perfect. It has to mold. The first output is a draft. It could be a 90% draft, but like, you have to understand the expectation. And I think that's a lot of the frustration with AI, because it was presented rightly or wrongly in the world as it's going to replace everything. I think people just jump to that. But it's not true. It's a multi-touch solution. It needs molding, and you need to work with it to get an output that you're happy with. So let's look at some prompting techniques. So like basic text, like it's all about wording. So the words that you give prompts is really, really important. So if you're trying to create things, using the word create, develop, write, make is really important. If you're trying to list things out, outline, give it numbers, you have to be really clear with it, what you want the output to be to get close to where you want to go. Instructional prompts. So instructional prompts. So the idea of find 5 recipes for lunches for kids, make it into a schedule that's Monday to Friday. Giving it instructions is really, really important. Keywords, giving it detail, giving it like nutritious, health, freshly ingredients, this kind of stuff. Giving it the details so it doesn't give you back something that you don't want is massively important. Informational prompts. So provide an overview of Adidas, top performing footwear collection. Doing that is really, really important. Extract, find, discover information. All this kind of stuff is really, really important. Giving it the detail that it needs to be successful. Then interactive prompts. imagine you're a travel guide. Imagine you're a reviewer of a proposal. Imagine you're my boss. Imagine you're someone who knows nothing about the industry who's reading this document for the first time. How does it land? Going back to that evaluation phase is really, really important. Create a conversation with it. Does this point come across? What is the main focus of this document, and does it align to what you originally thought? And you see the results. Reasoning prompts. Ask AI to give you thoughtful conclusions. How will it land? How will someone read this document? Imagine the impact of the social media on today's younger generation. How is that going to land? All this kind of stuff. So there's lots of ways of instructing, but words matter in this scenario, and it's about finding the words that gets you an output that you're happy with. So it's not just about copying and pasting a prompt off the internet. You really do need to nurture it and understand what you want the outcome to be in order to ask the right question. And the way I do everything, I like to do things in steps and break things down. And someone asked me at the event, why don't you do this all in one go? And I understand that methodology to some extent, but it is a case of, you need to work with it. Like it's hard to edit something when it's fully done. I like to see how it's developed and work with it. And that's as quick as often, getting a massive output that seems like it's done and having to go in and edit it, working with it. So I always start with like an outline. So write a LinkedIn post of the benefits of marketing, express these 3 points. So, start with an outline. Then it gives you a result. Then you start to add context. So you say, okay, this is my authority in the space. This is my expertise. So take all this piece of content about me and give it context. I would like this blog to show my experience and my relevance to the topics that I've said. Then add style. Then say, condense the post, make it shorter, make it upbeat, make it exciting. And then we get to a final output that we're quite happy with. So taking it in that 3 steps is really important. Create an outline, result. Add context, result. Add style, result. And then you're closer, I believe, always to a final product. And think about that methodology. Starting with an outline, very normal thing to do. Okay, so I would like, if think you're talking to an employee, I would like you to write this memo. It's about this. Okay, here's more context about what the memo needs to discover. Okay, and this is the output I would like it to be. I would like it to be short. I'd like it to be snappy. I'd like it to be interesting. So like giving it that kind of role is really good. But you can actually see it being created with AI now. You can see it being created in front of you, which is amazing. And those style and contexts might evolve based on the output it gives you from step 1 and step 2, which I think is really unique. Let's talk about RFP and tenders. Let's get really into the weeds here a little bit, and let's start to kind of divulge the information a little bit more. So let's talk about where AI can support us, maybe in like the proposal development strategy piece. So how can I'll take one example from this. How can we align our proposal strategy with missions and goals of our government agency we are bidding on? So that's in the ideation phase. Think about it as, okay, here's something that we're looking to bid on. This is a bit of information about our company. How can we align our proposal strategy to the bid? Given output. So this is me talking to an intern or talking to someone who knows about the space and just having conversation about it. Let's ideate. Like, what's the way we can get our mission across? What way can we get our goals across? How can we use it in that ideation phase to come up with some really good ideas that we can actually incorporate into our bid? When it comes to risk and compliance, I fear about AI in this scenario, right? So we talked about how it's not good for finding requirements. We talk about how it's not, you can't trust it with 100% repeatable and accurate results. But how can we trust it to maybe do things like give us advice? So I really like the idea of what steps can we make sure that we're fully compliant against this RFP? So what are the steps? So what are things that are out there in the world that are well talked about that we should be doing here? Will AI give us some things that we have never done before, some check boxes to tick that might be hugely beneficial for us? let's go to number 3. Let's go back. So value proposition and competitiveness. How can we present a compelling value proposition that lands with the expectations here? So this is, how do we get ourselves across really well? So again, in the ideation phase, like how can we compel real value? How can we balance cost effectiveness with high performance on this proposal? Asking your questions like that and getting outputs that might change. This has nothing to do with writing the RFP. It's more so about, okay, how do we approach it in the right way? Okay, storytelling and persuasion. So this is when you get into the writing side. It's okay, take this piece of content that we've written. How do we make it more persuasive? How do we get across more cohesive language in this RFP? Using it to evoke text is a wonderful way, and add tone and make it more emotive, make it more interesting is a fabulous way of using AI. Customer-centric proposal. So this is an interesting one. The amount of times we've seen organizations produce proposals without referring anything to the client, not even using the client's name in many scenarios. This is a good way to use AI because it's something we're so used to submitting, and if you're a company that submits on everything, that's your approach. Whether you think that's a good approach or not a good approach, if you're like that and you're submitting, you tend to lose that customization, that customer-centric language. So using AI to make sure that you're reflecting the customer's language in your RFP, its specific pain points. Are we hitting the mark here? Look at the draft. Look at what we've produced. Are we hitting the mark here? That's a really good use of AI in this scenario. Customer-centric proposal. So this is one actually that I find is fabulous for. And it may not give you the visuals that you absolutely want, but ideas around the visuals. So here's a chunk of information. How could I present this in a visual or a data chart? I found AI hugely beneficial in that because I am good with data, but visualizing data is a real skill, and being able to take something that has a lot of numbers in it or a lot of facts and figures in it and show it in different ways is a skill, and being able to simplify it in graphics is a great way to do things. And the last thing I would say for AI, and it's applying it to tenders in this space, is how can I help with collaboration? So how can I help with how technical teams work with pricing teams? How ask it questions about how can we improve the communication between this team and that team? How should we run this meeting? Even taking the notes of the meeting and being able to share them afterward fastly or quickly is a huge thing. How can we provide better feedback loops between the different parts of the process? AI can be used as a huge benefit in these scenarios. Okay, and now moving on to integrations and security. So this is the more serious, difficult part of the presentation where, some people are massively interested in it. Some people, it's just not their thing. But no matter what, this part of it has massive impact for how successful AI can be in our businesses, and even if we can use AI at all. And there is solutions out there that can meet security standards and can support us, but it's just about understanding what's out there too. So first of all, from an integration perspective, that's where AI becomes the next level. So this is a little bit blurry, but the understanding here of using proprietary data, using data that is in your system, using files that you have used them before. The LLMs are only as good as what they have access to. So if you're hoping that the LLM can speak like you, can understand your world in a single prompt with no data behind it, that's difficult. That's a tough task for it to ask. And we talked about earlier about creating an outline and then giving it context. Well, this is a way of giving it serious context and giving it more context than we ever expected. So the idea of being able to pull from SharePoint or being able to pull from your own OneDrive or your own computer or whatever, pull from files that you've used in the past that have been successful, or files that you feel like will support these prompts, give an accurate output, well, that's where AI is truly going. And I suppose what you're looking at here is a way of, hyperlinking a file and hyperlinking a folder. So hyperlinking a file, which is the NASA soup draft file, and then looking at a folder of our previous VHS files and outputs in order to give it a better understanding and get a better output. That is what AI is, I think, for our work in particular, where we have so much detail and, you know, certainly less than good enough is not good enough. We need to get to very close to great, and being able to intertwine with our own data and our own files. This work, being able to connect Gen AI platforms to your own file system, being able to pull a draft from your file into a prompt, being able to connect a prompt to a folder of files. That's called RAG. That's where retrieval augmented generation is, where you're pulling files from a source. SharePoint being probably the most natural source, but also your own laptop or OneDrive or Google Drive or whatever you're using. I'm not going to go into the detail of how that works and what's the things to think about. It's not where I'm the technology behind it is not my forte or something that I'm an expert in, but Fergal, our CEO, certainly is. And he writes a newsletter every 2 weeks, and he talks about topics like this, and he goes in depth about RAG and AI and what it's good for, what it's not good for, and he speaks really eloquently about it, and he makes it really understandable. So if you're interested in learning more about the back end of things, of how things work, it's a great thing to look at. I would highly recommend that. But that's where Visible Thread is going. That's where most organizations who are trying to work with like government contractors and RFP or tender managers or bid writers, they're trying to allow you to prompt using previous documents, using like real files. So it's giving you a much, much stronger output. And then when we talk about security, so security is the biggest deal here. And if you're working in our industry and you're working in government contracting and you're in a defense space or you're in a highly secure space or you're in a very competitive space, you don't want your data going outside the firewall. And that's the number one concern of most of our customers. And it's why they use Visible Thread, and it's why we stand out, is the fact that we are highly secure. We can be on your side of the fence. We don't access your data. Your data doesn't go anywhere. It lives behind the firewall. And there's sometimes a bit of an assumption that AI cannot be used behind the firewall. Well, it can. There is a way of putting the LLM behind the firewall, so you can use the power of generative AI without your files going outside, without your data and messaging go outside, training the model accessible to other people. What are the hesitations your organization might have on that? There is ways and means. Meta recently have agreed partnerships with some defense contractors to allow them to use Llama 3 behind the firewall and things like that. You're hearing stuff maybe in the press about that. So it is possible. You can get the benefit of AI behind the firewall. A lot of companies are building their own LLMs, and we've seen that in the past where I'm sure some will be successful, but that's a huge amount of work. And maintaining the LLM is probably the biggest concern there, rather than the actual development of it. So it is, using a vendor like ourselves allows you to have that peace of mind that your data is secure, but you also get the functionality that's going to make you work better, be more competitive, and have a better output. So it's just about knowing what's out there and asking the right questions. And I think that's probably, for all those who are looking at investing AI, that's the question. Where's my data going? If you're looking at a cloud solution, if you're whatever type of solution you're looking at, where is my data? And are you okay with that? Are you okay with the answer? Is your company concerned about the result of that? If not, if they are, you'll have to look like a vendor that can support you a bit better from a security standpoint. So let's summarize. Let's summarize it all, and let's see where we go from here. So first of all, don't worry about your job. Your job is safe. AI is not taking over the world. It has its frustrations. It's in some ways creating more work, but in many ways, if you're using it well and you know what it's good for and you can apply it and you have good strategies, it can save you so much time. But it's a tool in the toolkit. It's another thing. It's another thing. It's we all have technology has allowed us all to improve in different parts of our job, but has never replaced our jobs. It's always been um an addition or a tool to be used. I do think it's highly important that people become proficient in it, experts in it, because if you're not, the next person leading up to you will be. And it's a really valuable skill, and it's not going away. Create and evaluate. So that's one part of this seminar that I hope you got benefit from. I truly believe in this. I believe that, yes, AI is amazing for creation. Create a draft, create this, create an image, create whatever. And that was great. I think that caused frustration in many ways at the very beginning, but that's what was very exciting, is like to see, oh, I can do this, and I can create that, and I can create this image, and I can create this social media post, and it's so easy. Um, but the evaluation phase, I think, is actually probably stronger. Being able to, how does this land? To ideate with it. How should I go about this? To pass ideas back and forth. So it's not necessarily always about creating an output. It's more about idea bouncing and trying to get a reaction out of AI that maybe you haven't thought of. Using it as a bouncing board and something. Okay, here's an idea. Have it come back to. Here's a final draft of an RFP. How does it read? Am I hitting the main points? Let it come back to and see what it says. I think it's really interesting. The right tool for the right job. The image here is cereal, I think, with a fork, and yeah. Look, don't try and use ChatGPT to find requirements in your RFP. Don't try and use, VT Writer for comparisons between different documents. Use VT Docs for doing requirements finding, or Control F, or use VT Docs for comparison, or use a comparison tool for a comparison document. Like, if you need to have 100% success, you need to use something that gives you that. But however, let's not underestimate the power of AI in terms of creation, evaluation, in terms of summarization, in terms of like being able to, work faster in that creative mode, to have something to bounce off, to do edits quickly, to proofread, to do different pieces. It's phenomenal at those type of things, but it's just the right tool for the right job. Hallucinations are real. Let's not pretend that you don't have to look at the work. Look, we all believe this, but the more you use AI, the more confident you get, the more you start to believe it, and it is very, very convincing. But you need to proofread. You have to look at the work. And if you start submitting things blindly, you could make a severe mistake, and no one wants to be caught out, and no one wants to be seen. Actually, I just put it into ChatGPT and I didn't read it. You don't want to be that person. So I think just understand that they are real and it will happen. AI is a conversation, so it's not a one button fix. You need to evolve it. You need to work with it. I like that 3-step approach of, here's the outline, give it context, and then add the style. It might take a couple of prompts to get those steps correct, but it's a really, really good way of trying to work it down and trying to nurture it as it moves down. I like to see the content being developed, so I feel like it's not just a massive output that I have to kind of work on myself. I kind of work as we go. And I would always say, if you're trying to do something that's quite severe, like several large pieces of documentation, or like one large document in one go, I'm like, do bit by bit, do paragraph by paragraph by paragraph, and then fix the flow at the end. Like, don't try and do something all in one go. The final thing is, content is much more than AI. Content is imagery, it is ideas, it is presentation modes, it's tone. Like, let's not say everything can be done with AI, because it can't. There's content in terms of the way we discuss things, the way we manage things between people, how we communicate. Like, our work is not going to be fully taken over by AI in any means. There's so much that AI can do, but there's so much that in our roles that it can't. And I think we don't underestimate, but the press and the way AI is talked about as this new revolution, and it's a one button and everything is created. And I just don't believe that. And I don't think anyone genuinely does either. Um, if you're in the field and if you're working every day, I think if you're looking at it from an objective perspective, I think genuinely you will find so many gaps in AI that only a human can solve. And that's the beauty of it. It's a partnership. It's that Wolverine Deadpool thing. It's a tool in the toolkit. It's the right tool for the job. It's all those kind of things that will make AI successful for you or not. So I really enjoyed this presentation. I'd love your feedback. I'd love you to get involved. I actually write a newsletter myself called AI in Action, where I show some like really specific things. It's leaning a little bit into the marketing sector, but we talk about all things like different tools, different ways of using prompt ideas, loads of things. So feel free to contact me via LinkedIn, reach out to me after this talk. I'm just so happy that you took the time to join me. If you've lasted this long on the video, I'm delighted. And just thank you for your time. And I hope you found this valuable, and more than happy to have a conversation about the topic. So thank you very much.